so awesome to see. And of course, we got a beautiful picture perfect background today. And it's just pretty incredible. And we're very thankful that we're able to introduce the next era of human spaceflight from this ground. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and everyone inside that capsule knows that as well.
Yeah, we talked about the Apollo missions and the space shuttle missions. Since SpaceX took over the lease in 2014, we have also been making a little bit of history ourselves. In 2018, we debuted the Falcon Heavy rocket test flight. And for those that remember, that launched Starman.
Yeah.
And Starman is out there right now in his Tesla, exploring space.
Listening to David Bowie.
Last year, we also returned... Last year, we also returned crewed flight from American soil with the Demonstration 2 mission with Bob and Doug. And we also had our first operational crew mission last November as well. So
and that's actually
to march forward.
And that's actually the capsule that's flying today.
Yes.
That first operational crew mission, Crew 1, which launched in November 2020, that is the same capsule that the Inspiration 4 crew is flying in today. We like to refer to it as certified pre-owned.
Yeah, and everything that Kate and Andy just mentioned, without all of that, we wouldn't be here today. And it's incredible to think that literally our 4 all-civilian crew members are sitting in the Dragon capsule right now, about to make the next step in human spaceflight. We've always talked about, even before we were flying crew, that we always wanted to turn rockets into airplanes. Like, how do we turn... how do we turn such a difficult, costly flight into a more affordable and more often flight? And this is one step closer to that major step today, and just so exciting that we're actually here.
Absolutely. Yeah, reusability really is the thing that unlocks access to space. And personally, I am super excited for more people to be able to experience space, because there's something known as the overview effect. And that's essentially the effect that humans experience when they're able to look back upon planet Earth from a different perspective. And I honestly believe that, the more people that get to experience that, the better off planet Earth will be, as well as the human civilization.
Yeah, Dragon today is going to be flying 4 people. It can hold up to 7, so hopefully in the near future we'll see 7 folks flying in Dragon. It is, again, the first private spacecraft to take humans to the space station, and will be the first private spacecraft to ever take an all-civilian crew to space and orbit. So we've got a really cool animation here of our Dragon vehicle.
So as we mentioned before, the pressurized section, the section that we actually see the crew in, is there at the top. The nose cone will open up and reveal the cupola, the observation dome, and we'll can't wait to see all the exciting views that they're going to see from there. And then if you look at the bottom portion, which the lighter side is reflecting towards us, we'll call it the Jedi side, and then the dark side now. I told you, Team Star Wars all the way. The dark side, which is actually the solar panels, which are one of my favorite things. We build them in-house here at SpaceX, integrate them onto the trunk, and that trunk will not be making its journey home. Unfortunately, that is not one of the reusable components of Dragon. It will be jettisoned prior to the capsule's re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere.
The capsule is what the crew will live in for the next 3 days. The volume of the Dragon is about 328 cubic feet. So once they're in space and in microgravity, they'll be able to utilize that entire space. And with the cupola, they'll actually get just a little bit more room. They get a little bit more volume inside of that capsule.
Yeah, the Dragon capsule itself also is outfitted with some engines. We have 16 Draco engines built into Dragon. We also have 8 Super Draco engines built into 4 separate pods. Super Draco engines are used as part of the launch escape system. We actually disarm that after we get into orbit. When we're in space, take over, and that will do a number of things, micro adjustments in orbit, as also raising the orbit altitude later on after they depart from the second stage of Falcon 9.
Yeah, so you mentioned orbit there. Dragon is actually going to be orbiting higher than the International Space Station and higher than the Hubble telescope. It'll be orbiting at about 575 kilometers. And like we mentioned before, that observation dome is brand new to this mission. And from that height, views from the space station are amazing, but this crew is going even further. In fact, I think we have some footage of the cupola, and which is one of my favorite things now on Dragon. It's just a gorgeous piece of hardware. Like I said, it's brand new to this mission.
Dragon, SpaceX, stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. Please ensure that all items are secure from now through launch.
And copy that, SpaceX standing by.
There on your screen, we can see the pad closeout team closing the side hatch, which is one of the last visual things that we'll see here in the crew access arm.
The crew looks so excited. I think every little milestone, even if it's within 5 minutes, they get very excited. And I think they know what to expect. They've practiced this so many times. But this is the real thing right now. So this is the real hatch closure before they lift off. And they will close the hatch, inflate a seal, they'll torque the hatch down and then perform some leak checks on that hatch.
Yeah, they'll inflate that seal and hold pressure to it for a few minutes and monitor that pressure to make sure that there's no leakage. And once we get confirmation of that, they'll basically put on the door on the door. It's a small piece that will actually go on where that torquing area is, which you can sort of see it there behind the closeout lead number 9 there on the right-hand side. But yeah, this process can take a few minutes, so they must be super excited. They can still hear the voices of the closeout team, but they can't go to space just yet. We're just under T-minus 2 hours until that happens.
Now, Kate, as you mentioned, T-minus 2 hours. In the timeline, they're right on the timeline. The plan was T-minus 2 hours to initiate the closing of the hatch. So the good news is on the Dragon side, everything's running just as planned. Falcon 9 side, again, folks checking in on station, but still fairly quiet on the launch vehicle for about another hour. And not to dwell on negative, but we have had, in the case of one of the NASA crew missions, we close the hatch. I think there's a little bit of debris got caught in the seal. We caught that, we open it up to be able to reopen the hatch if we have to, clean things up a little bit, close it and retest it again. That's why we've got all the way until T-minus 1 hour before the SpaceX egress team there that you see finally has to get off of the pad.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that was crew 1 that occurred on.
Does look like that closeout tech is cleaning the hatch doorway there, make sure that there is no debris or FOD there.
Going back to something we talked about a little bit ago, the orbit of Inspiration 4, 575 kilometers higher than essentially any Americans have been since the Apollo flight. The Gemini flights got up to about that altitude, but this is fairly rarefied air, so to speak, that the crew's going to. And one of the questions of Jared when they were picking the mission design was, why 575? Why don't you want to go, typically we've been launching into 300 kilometers or so. But one of the purposes of this is to inspire. And you go a step beyond what we have done before. And so Inspiration 4, the 4th flight with people out of the U.S., or as Chris said, 39A, that's where Americans leave to go to space. And here they are today. And of course, Inspiration 4 representing the 4 crew members who are on board this mission.
Yeah, you make a good point with the fact that Jared wanted to inspire. And he's doing that in another way as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you might notice that there is a donation button for St. Jude Children's Hospital. We are fundraising money for research and cures for childhood cancer, pediatric cancer, which is very near and dear to this particular mission. The individual that's seated on the far right-hand side of your screen there, that's Haley Arsenault. She is 29, and she actually is a pediatric cancer survivor. She had bone cancer.
So if you are watching, as Kate said, on YouTube, there is a donation button. So please donate what you can. We've so far raised about $133,000 on the YouTube channel so far.
So if you've just recently joined us, on the right-hand side of your screen there is the Inspiration 4 crew. They are in their seats. The seats have been rotated back to launch position. They have undergone comms and leak checks. And the view on your right is the Dragon capsule. That's where they're seated inside of that conical section. And we are awaiting a liftoff here in 1 hour and 53 minutes. Right now, the crew there inside that crew access arm is pressurizing the side hatch and basically working through the process to close the side hatch, lock it up, and retract the crew access arm.
Right now, we're just inside T-minus 1 hour, 53 minutes. Major activity coming up here as we are working the closing of the side hatch and then the leak check. Roughly about the same time, we ought to hear another series of communications checks. Earlier, we heard 3 comm checks from the crew down through the umbilical, which is the electrical line that connects the ground to the spacecraft. Then they also did a comm check over radio frequency to our ground stations there at Cape Canaveral. And then we also did a communications check through NASA's tracking and data relay satellites that are up in geosynchronous orbit, which we'll use during the mission. But one last group still to talk to is the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch team. So right now we've got hatch closed. You can see everybody peering at it, making sure the seams look good. And then we'll wait to start a clock and see that the hatch closure is good. And at the same time, listen to the crew eventually talk to Falcon 9 launch team. As we go past liftoff, you will hear call-outs, Falcon 9 avionics, guidance navigation and control engineer, propulsion engineer will be reading out status, and that'll be actually going from the firing room 4 up to the crew to let them know that things are looking good. So we're going to do a comm check to make sure all of those engineers can also talk to the crew and that each other can hear. Meanwhile, as we wait for comm checks and confirmations that the side hatch closure is checked out, successful, in the area we've got Falcon 9 team is clearing the flight hazard and the flight caution area, T-minus 2 hours. These are larger areas around the Complex 39A. So roadblocks are down.
Dragon SpaceX, we are commencing health checks for the launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
And copy that, SpaceX, standing by.
Yeah, we're going to do a quick check here that's planned on Dragon. This just changes what we call a command sequence on Dragon. They're not actually opening the side hatch and then going back to close it. That just changes states in their displays. But as I mentioned, we are clearing hazard and caution areas. No indications of any issues right now. We'll wrap that up in another half an hour or so. Falcon 9's looking good right now. Dragon obviously looking good. And the weather continues to cooperate. What we all like to talk about, but you can't do anything about it. With that, Andy, how are things looking on your end?
Yeah, our crew today